The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
Obviously, we over budgeted last year. I hate to say that I was right, but I was right. So.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
I take our constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of my constituents, very seriously.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you boil this down, there is never any time that a parent's right to govern what their children see and what they're exposed to should ever be bypassed.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Since JFAC was ever created, that this body has set these kind of bills, tax cuts and budgets, spending bills. We've never done it before. And today we're setting a precedence, the second year where we're going to do this. You got to ask yourself why. Why are we doing it?
Folks, welcome to Idaho Signal. We're on the air here. The Senate has finally taken up House Bill 40, which is the $253 million income tax cut. It also, I think, takes away capital gains on gold and silver, I think, and stuff like that. But the big enchilada here is a reduction in the tax rate. Currently, we are at, help me out, guys. I think we're at 5.8%. No, 5.4%. Is your income tax rate, and this would take it down to 5.2. I'm sorry, I don't recall exactly what it is because I've been researching all of the income tax rates that have been consistently going down over the years. So I'll get that number for you in just a second. But the debate opened here with a open from the Senator Ricks, who's carrying the bill in the Senate. We then had two opposing debates, one from the Democrat, which was no surprise. Democrat Melissa Wintrow stood up to voice her opposition to the bill. And then Senator Jim Guthrie, Republican, also said that this tax cut was too much. It was too much for you guys. You can't handle this. You can't handle it. Something along those lines. So, but yeah, here's the number. Currently, the tax rate is 5.695. And this would reduce the income tax down to 5.3. As you see, Democrat Jim Ruchti stand up to most likely vote against this. And then, and get guys, if you can get me the stats on the silver and gold stuff too, that would be great. So that's happening over there in the Senate, and over in the House, they're still getting their business done. Today, folks, is Idaho Day. So happy Idaho Day. There we go. Esto Perpetua, my friends. Today's Idaho Day. This was, it's a day that was enshrined into our, zeitgeist here in Idaho officially a number of years ago. But this basically just celebrates the day that Abraham Lincoln recognized the Idaho Territory back in 1863, I believe. And so what happens generally, as happened today in both the House and Senate, they had about a half hour or so of celebration. There was singing, there was a quiz. They had like a game show quiz happening in the House. There was a beautiful prayer delivered in the Senate from Senator Taves as Senator Josh Cole presided over the Senate during Idaho Day festivities. So that's what was going on today. So I wish you all out there a happy Idaho Day. Yeah, there is no more capital gains or losses elimination on bullion. Up to $1 million, I think. So yeah, that's some good news out there. So yeah, that's happening in the Senate. We'll keep tabs on that. I'm sure it's going to, well, we don't know if it's going to pass. I mean, the numbers are tighter in the Senate. There's still more work to be done in terms of getting a more conservative Senate side. But that's what, okay. I should have done my homework on this bill. We went through H40 back when it was sitting over in the House, but it's been so long since it passed over there that I've forgotten all the details about it. This would save about $1 million for those out there who are have to report your capital gains on silver and gold and the like. So anyway, hey, you come here for all the right information, right? Anyway, it's a great bill, and we're hoping to see it pass through as the Democrats try and make their case against it. So we will we'll keep tabs on that. Want to also let you know right here at the top, if you're watching live online, that's fantastic. It's great to see you here. But if you're on the go, if you happen to be in your car or in a place that has limited data or whatever, you can go to idahosignal.live and listen to the show live right now. It's a radio app. You don't need an app. I mean, the app is in your browser. So you just go to idahosignal.live and it'll direct you to the radio streaming of this program live. And then shortly after the show ends, it will recycle, and throughout the day, this show will just be on repeat. So it's a pretty cool feature. So if you are in the car, you're out in the field, wherever you're at, and you only have limited data or connectivity, you can go to idahosignal.live and listen to the program live there. So that's pretty awesome. And then, of course, call in 208-402-4915. Leave a voicemail, leave a message, and we'll play it live on the air. We've gotten some great calls so far this session, and we hope to hear more from you on all of that, because there's a lot of interesting angles. There's a lot of things going on at the Capitol. So many things going on. We're trying to cut through a lot of the noise and just deliver you things that you feel are important, and that we feel are important when it comes to preserving our shared values and it comes to preserving our rights. And of course, keeping tabs on how they spend our money and how they collect our money as well. So we'll keep that going over here. Don't you worry, folks. One of the things that I think it was fascinating that came out. I think, let's see, it's only Tuesday, so this happened last week. We didn't get to it yesterday. I wanted to get to it yesterday, but last week, folks, there was a bill in the Senate that Senator Ben Adams brought forward, and what he wanted to do was he wanted to start a grant program, and he wanted to grant money to crisis pregnancy centers. The argument being that since Idaho and Roe v. Wade has fallen, Idaho has become one of the most, if not the most, pro-life states in the union. And therefore, if we're going to have such restrictions on abortion, that the state needs to come forward and help mothers who are in dire situations, who are pregnant mothers who are in dire situations, get the help that they need in order to have a healthy child brought into the world. And so his idea was, and many, was to, well, let's take tax dollars and help these centers and help these mothers and do it that way. And we played a speech last week given by Rand Paul, who was quoting a speech given by Davy Crockett back in the day when Davy Crockett was an actual, Representative David Crockett, from, where was he from? Kentucky? I mean, I think that's where he would probably be from, or Tennessee. What is it? Is it Kentucky or Tennessee? I don't know. Put it in the comments. I apologize. I'm not up to my Davy Crockett lore. That being said, who talked about it's not yours to give. And it was a very compelling speech. I encourage you to go back. It's got some views over on YouTube and Rumble, but go back and listen to that speech about using taxpayer money to take care of people who otherwise should be taken care of by charity, by their neighborhoods. And he challenged David Crockett challenged the Congress back then. He said, if we just donate a week of our own pay, just 1 week of our own pay, we will have raised more money than what the Congress is trying to appropriate for this poor widow who lost her husband in the war. They wanted to give $20,000, and he said, forget giving the taxpayer money. Why don't we just chip in a week's worth of our pay, and she will be more than taken care of. In the same vein here, Senator Shippey voiced his opposition to, very pro-life Senator Shippey here voiced his opposition to this bill to create grants for these crisis pregnancy centers. I want to remind you of a little bit of what Senator Shippey said.
When I became a deacon at our church, probably 5 or 6 years ago, one of the major topics we talked about was that government has largely replaced the church in efforts of benevolence and various functions. This is another step in that wrong direction. Crisis pregnancy centers should be supported by donations and not taxpayer dollars. Taxpayer dollars are taken by force. Let us be generous with our own money and not force us to maybe give twice. So that's I guess, a major problem that I have with this. It is an improper role of government. Every dollar spent is a dollar taxed. So this is a major problem I have with it. It does have the problem of bringing future strings attached, as others have noted. These centers should remain, if they're Christian, they should remain Christian, and they should be a faith-based entity supported by donations. Some of the concerns that I have as well is if we go down this road, if a pregnancy center is able to tap into public funds, grant funds, it will discourage donations. If I know that I'm already funding this through my tax dollars, it's going to be harder for me to be motivated to donate to something.
Okay, very good.
If there is
we played this entire clip last week, so I encourage you folks to go back and listen to some of this when we covered this actual hearing. So then, what's the answer? If we want to make sure that crisis pregnancy centers can receive donations, and we can help amplify their ability to serve pregnant mothers that may be in crisis, or that may be debating different paths forward for them and their child. Well, enter the Idaho Family Policy Center, who is trying to help with some legislation that was presented in committee yesterday, which is or I don't know when it was, but it was recently. And it was Representative John Schertz out of District 9 was given the task to present this idea, which we think is a much better way to encourage donations and charitable giving to these crisis pregnancy centers. Let's listen a little bit to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow members of the Revenue Tax Committee. Good morning. My name is Representative John Schertz. I'm from the Western Treasure Valley, District 9, which is Payette Canyon and Washington County. Today, I bring forward to you RS 32347, the Investing in Mothers and Families Act. This legislation aims to support families around the state by incentivizing private contributions to pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes. Pregnancy resource centers specialize in delivering medical, financial, practical, and spiritual assistance to pregnant mothers and their families, all with no cost to the family. This legislation strengthens the culture of life here in Idaho, ensuring mothers and families have the resources and community to choose life for their preborn children. I'll walk through a bit of this bill because it does a couple things. Section 2 creates a Choose Idaho Life Fund, which will be administered by the Idaho Treasurer. Monies in this fund would be given to the Choose Idaho Life, Inc., which is a current volunteer-run nonprofit that already writes grants to the Idaho Pregnancy Resource Centers. Currently, this Choose Idaho Life, or Choose Life Idaho, receives their funding from the Choose Life specialty plate that I'm sure you see around our state, that was created in 2020. Relatedly, Section 4 would add Choose Life Idaho to the list of organizations on the Idaho Income Tax Form 40, enabling taxpayers to directly contribute a portion of their income tax to this fund. Section 3 would add pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes to the list of nonprofit organizations already eligible for a special charitable tax credit. Now notice we're not creating a new tax credit. That's not what we're doing with this. This adds simply the pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes to be able to get that existing special charitable tax credit. According to a statewide poll by the Idaho Family Policy Center, 68% of likely Idaho voters support this extension of the special charitable tax credit. This section also increases the charitable tax contributions that qualify for this special charitable tax credit to 25% of the total income tax liability for corporations and 35% of the total income tax liability for
as he goes through the
individuals.
details here, we're gonna show you kind of here exactly what this does. So currently there is a list right now of charities that we are incentivized to give to because we get some better tax credits, or we're able to take advantage of that. So over on the over on the tax.idaho.gov site, you can look at the list there to see donations to educational charities. And yeah, here it is here. And so as you can see, the contributions and taxes. So here's exactly, and this is what he was describing. Here are the things that you as a business or as an individual can take advantage of. 50% of your total income tax, 500. What is it? For all businesses, individuals, and entities, the law limits the yearly tax credit to the smallest of $500 per taxpayer, 50% of your total income tax, or 50% of the amount donated. And so if you go down. Yeah, there's the list, right? Do we have the list down there? Yeah, here it is. These are the organizations currently that you can contribute to take advantage of these credits. And here you can see the Council for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired, the State Independent Living Council, the Developmental Disabilities Council, all the way down the list here. Nonprofit, public and private institutions for elementary, for schools. You can donate to schools. You can donate to medical residency programs, the Idaho STEM Action Center, the Commission on Hispanic Affairs. I mean, so many of these things, even including nonprofit, public, or private museums and their foundations. You donate to that. You may not know this, but make sure your tax, if you are donating to this, make sure your tax person knows this. But what this bill will do will add crisis pregnancy centers to this list. This list is already here. People are already taking advantage of it. And if we are going to have live in a state that protects life, then we want to make sure that we can help pregnant mothers. I mean, what better way to donate and help folks, to help families and mothers in need than adding them to this list, and growing their ability to help people across Idaho. So this is, I think this is great. And I don't know why anybody would be against this, whether you're on the left or you're on the right, you're on the fence, you're in the middle, you're green, you're purple, you're black, you're white, you're red. Who knows? But this is exactly the kind of stuff, this is the kind of thinking that we need to have here, to encourage charitable giving to these organizations and not just taking from because they're going to raise more than just relying on a grant from the state, right? It's going to be great. So yeah, this is a great bill. I think this is House Bill 342, I believe. Where did my notes go? I got my notes. Yeah, House Bill 342 is the answer to the defeat of House Bill Senate Bill 1077, because the one that would have created the Crisis Pregnancy Center grant program failed in committee. And so this one here should be what everybody else can get behind. There's no reason why, although I'm sure we'll hear some reasons as we follow that bill through committee. Okay, very good. Folks, still happening in the Senate is the income tax bill, still going through the debate. Looks like Senator Groh is up there. And in the House, they've finally gotten underway with their bills. House Bill 240, Representative Vito Barbieri, that's my representative, so to speak. He is delivering a debate on House Bill 240. What is House Bill 240? Oh, let's listen to this, man. This is all about free speech, baby. Is he still debating?
I'm getting your question correctly. Go to page 3, section 336804, and we're talking about, as it's defined, what the outdoor areas are, and then go to 336805, free expression activity, where we start to outline what essentially that means. And so if a group, for example, wanted to bring someone in, it could be a big name, small name, whatever, then there would be a time and place designated by the university. In other words, they wouldn't be sent off to the North 40. They would have access to whatever areas had been designated by the university that were accessible to the students. And then at that point, I think in the past, the concerns have been, and this is what clarifies it, what happens now if you have a counter protest? That counter protest cannot stop with this legislation the free speech. Now, they can have their own counter protest someplace else, that the university would designate. But if they were to come in, be disruptive, get violent, that is where the university then is required to step in so that free speech is allowed to continue.
Gentleman 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 30.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good lady yield for a question?
Lady yield for a question?
Absolutely.
Lady yield.
Thank you. I'm looking at your bill on page 3, line 17, section 33-6805. It looks to me like it outlaws the public institutions from charging any fees for security should a group come on campus that could potentially cause disruption or problems. Does that mean that those expenses would have to be absorbed by the university?
Good lady, 33.
You know what? I might have missed the question. It looks like it's what is outlawed?
Okay, just a second. Good gentleman from 30, would you care to restate where you're at and your question, please?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I'm looking at page 3, line 17, 33-6805 says free expressive activity, security fees, harassment policy required. And then going to section 2 of that line 23, it says no public institution of higher education shall charge security fees to a student or a student organization based on the content of the student's or organization's expression, the content of the expression of the student's or organization's invited guest, or anticipated reaction to an invited guest's expression. So if somebody were coming on campus, part of the student or not, invited guests, whoever it might be, if they anticipated a large crowd, they wanted security to be there, am I correct in interpreting that the school would have to absorb those costs? They couldn't pass that cost on to that organization?
Good lady, 33.
Mr. Speaker, good gentleman, you are correct that you can't, because you happen to bring a Ben Shapiro on campus, you can't charge that group, because this is a tactic that's actually been used by the universities to shut down speech. And so we've had universities then charge, that's going to be $50,000. And another group, they'll charge $1,000. So, you cannot use something like that to deter the ability to bring someone on. The university then must provide the same security as they would for anyone else.
Thank you. Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 30. Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This raises a real concern for me simply because I believe another tactic might be to flood the university with lots of expression that could cost a lot of money to that university.
Oh
as a
my
tactic to
God.
put a burden on the university, which essentially is
Why
tax
do
dollars.
people stand in
So I struggle
opposition
with
to
this.
free
I feel like it
speech?
should be a fair and proper procedure.
You don't pay
to
for
request
speech.
the organizations bringing, whether it is a Ben Shapiro or any other political figure on either side of the
This is
aisle,
a- this
that
is
they
a
should
red
have
herring.
to be responsible for costs that might come because of their presence on campus. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to request.
Is this what we're really talking
for
about?
that,
Bring me
Mr.
up here. Is this
Speaker,
what we're really
I'll
talking
be a
about
red
here?
light.
Is this we're talking about like, oh, all of a sudden conservatives are going to flood the universities with people that we can charge so that universities can pay for all this security? It's absurd. I'll be curious to see how he votes on this.
Absolutely.
Lady yields.
And I'm only reading so I remember the number exactly. On section 3368,
Representative
remedies,
Mark
it
Sauter
talks
from
about,
District 1 up in
court
Bonner and
actions.
Boundary County.
Would those court actions be done here in our state, or would they be performed by a federal court?
Good gentleman, will you tell me what page that is on in the bill so that we can follow along with you?
Sure. Page 4, and it's the section that starts on line 11.
Thank you, gentlemen. Lady 33.
Mr. Speaker, good gentlemen, as I think was mentioned during our committee, that when you deal with a constitutional right, it can go federal, or this allows it to also go state, so that it could end up on either side. But it is a constitutionally protected amendment, and so yes, it could end up federal, but also this allows it to go to the state level.
Further debate on the motion. Gentleman from 1.
Sure. To debate against the bill.
Of course.
For that and other reasons, I'm a red light on this. I think free speech should be kept in the federal courts. We have enough business for our own state courts.
Oh my God, people, do you understand what's going on here? These people are not Republican conservatives. Are you kidding me?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to follow up on the debate from good representative from District 30.
Oh yeah, it's going to cost all this money.
Because in terms of who actually,
folks, this is a red line vote
enabled,
here. This is the vote. This is it right here. This is, we're talking about free speech.
And the problem is on, if you go to page 2, line 48, this bill is not just covering student organizations that have been officially recognized by the university, but the wording of this bill lets anyone.
Yeah, it is anyone
who is a student who wants to seek official recognition. Well, you can have groups that are extreme in either direction.
I'm telling you, Tunnel Lords, because these people are anti-American.
Recognition,
to be against free speech on college campuses is anti-American. This is the Democrat Steve Birch.
Very radical groups.
He's hearing me, District 15.
A security issue.
If you're watching this and you're in District 15 and you had a Trump sign in your yard and a Birch sign in your yard, this is what you voted for. Anti-free speech.
And my other concern with this bill is the penalties, and the fact that
the penalties.
You can wait a year before you file a grievance or a complaint. There's no reason to have to wait a year. If you had an incident, you should file within a week, not a year. And all this does is invite people claiming lawsuits.
Does he have the same argument when someone is raped? You need to file a rape charge within a week.
Voting against this
bill, you can't wait a year to file a rape charge.
Poorly constructed and will create more problems than it is attempting to solve. So
Unbelievable.
Highly recommend
free speech creates more problems than it attempts to solve.
Something that's a little less draconian and a little more focused on true organizations that have been recognized by the university as official student organizations. Thank you.
Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 26.
Mr. Speaker, first to declare a rule of 80. I'm a client of law firms that are involved.
Okay, your declaration will be noted in the journal.
Second for debate, please.
Gentleman has the floor.
The implication on page 4, line 21 and 22, is that $25,000 is the limit.
All right, folks, we got a lot to get to today. You guys want to keep watching this? Watch these fools, these absolute fools. When this tally comes up, when that board comes up and those greens and reds, that for me, you are all on notice. You are all on notice. This is unacceptable. Unacceptable. They will find any way to stifle free speech. I don't get it. I don't get it. Let's listen to the arguments.
Sets up
because we can knock these out of the park all day.
Business on a college campus, you don't get it done for $25,000. The sad part of this one is the restriction of free speech. I believe the issue was we support the thin blue line, which is simply law enforcement. The results and the damages from that lawsuit came about because they destroyed Boise City Coffee's business, if you will. And this bill to exclude commercial free speech, personally, if Boise City Coffee wants to put up, we support the thin blue line, I think that's a pretty wonderful thing. So I love free speech. It's great. But this bill has some side damages to it that I just can't vote for. Thank you.
Further debate on the motion? Hearing none. Would Late 33 care to close the debate?
Close it down, Coach. Close it down.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Friends, let's not look for reasons to shut down our First Amendment.
Amen.
I do have a couple of responses. And first, to the good gentleman from 26, we covered this. This has nothing to do with commercial free speech. You may want it to, but it simply doesn't. If you want it to, you actually need to bring your own piece of legislation. This is not about that. This is about students on campus and their ability for free expression on areas and topics that they want. The big city coffee and what happened there would have had nothing to do with this. As far as the good gentleman from 30, this simply hasn't occurred. We're kind of conjuring up things of what might possibly be, but you know, if we don't, these organizations could bring somebody on anyway, and then, you know, to think a university might be ill prepared, but to tell them that they can't bring someone to the campus, this is where we have that diversity of ideas and thoughts and figure out how to work things out. And think about what we're saying. You think about campuses where all of these major speakers end up showing up, and you're just saying you can't, that we're not going to do it. And that's the beauty of this legislation. You know, I don't really want to get into it, but just a year ago, had a major lawsuit with one of our universities because they shut down the religious speech of 3 of our conservative students and a professor. And if this had been in place, and we've actually been over it with them and the agency that defended them, this would have stopped it. This gave clear direction as to the manner in which to proceed. So, friends, you know, I guess we have to make our own decisions, but let's not shut down speech. And that's why we're bringing it. Unfortunately, Idaho's been in that situation where we've just shut down speech at our universities. And I appreciate the efforts the universities have given me in the last couple of years to come to the table. And we've taken so much, probably 90% we've taken of some of the things that they wanted and wanted change. And we've worked with them. So this has not been done as I think was insinuated, like in a vacuum. And there's something that is terribly amiss to this. This is very good legislation. Ready for your green light. Thank you.
Debate is closed. Question is, House Bill 240 pass the House?
All right, folks, here it goes.
Clerk will unlock the machine. Members will cast their votes.
And a little backstory here. She's been trying to get this bill through over and over again. She even had bipartisan support before. She had a co-sponsor on the Democrat side. So yeah, this thing's going to sail through. Very good. But make no bones about it here, folks.
Representative McCann, Representative Green, Alfieri.
Yeah, Furryman, McCann.
Does any member wish to change their vote?
Mickelson swapped.
Clerk will lock the machine and record the roll.
Man, we got to create some GIFs on that.
In favor of House Bill 240. House Bill 240 is passed the House. The correction title.
Oh,
title's approved. Bill
unbelievable.
The House will now.
Well, the good news is, folks, is that it went over, and it'll head over to the Senate, which I am very much encouraged by the bills and the things that we're seeing this year, because a lot of them end up getting a hearing in the Senate now they do finally, right? But there's still issues over there, man. There's still issues in the Senate, and we've got to put the squeeze on them. We got to turn the screws over there and get stuff through. Did you know that teachers union bill, House Bill 98, still hasn't had a hearing in the Senate? It's been over there for a while. So we'll keep tabs on it. There's still time. We still got the rest of the month here, most likely. So, okay. Let's take a quick break. They're voting on House Bill 40, the tax bill over in the Senate. So we'll have a tally for you on that when we come back. So stick around. We'll be right back.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
The dictionary defines a pledge as something that you give as a sign that you'll keep a promise. As Idahoans, that's what we're looking for in our elected leaders. A sign that they'll keep their word. Talk is cheap, and so are political promises, hidden agendas, and special interests. This is why we created the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge, affirming the values Idahoans have been living by for over 100 years, inspired by the only two documents everyone has agreed to live by. So when an Idaho legislator signs our pledge, inviting voters to publicly hold them accountable, that's what we call political integrity. The pledge restores trust and honesty between voters and their legislators. It means protecting our shared values and ensuring your voice is heard in Boise. And that is priceless. Thank your legislator for having the political courage to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge. And if they haven't, it's time to ask why.
All right, folks, here it is, the signal boost. We left it up here for you. It's call.idahopetitions.com. End the mask mandates forever. If you like your mask, you can keep your mask. You can wear your mask, okay? But this is to stop political subdivisions, school boards, health districts, courtrooms, cities, counties from telling you you must wear a mask in order to participate in society. That ends right now. Governor Little has till tomorrow around this time, about 24 hours from now, or less than 24 hours from now, to sign this bill. So you can call 208-334-2100 or head over to call.idahopetitions.com and get that message to the governor now. All right, folks, we are back. The Senate has adjourned, but before they adjourned, they passed House Bill 40, the tax bill, 27-8. 27-8. No, that is House Bill 2040. So let's not confuse people. Get rid of that. First off, House Bill 40 was in the Senate. This was the income tax bill, the capital gains, no capital gains on gold and silver and metals. That passed 27-8. All the Democrats voted against it, including Republican Senator Jim Guthrie and apparently Republican Senator Jim Woodward from the North. So these folks think you're getting too much of a tax break. Too much of a tax break. It's too big. It's too big. We can't have that many. We can't have you having that much money. We can't have you not paying your fair share on your gold and silver. We can't have that. My goodness. We can't have corporations having lower taxes. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is what those Republicans up north are saying. Incredible what's going on in District 1. Absolutely incredible. All right, folks. That's the good news, though. It did pass. And so it's on its way to the governor. So will the governor sign the tax bill? That's the big question here. So maybe we'll have to have another signal boost on that one, because remember, the governor was just looking for $100 million tax break. And the House have been setting out bills that's going to total over $400 million. Did I say 100,000? 100? Well, I don't know what it was, but those are the facts right there. We got a property tax bill coming as well. That is House Bill 304. That'll be voted on in the House, and that's going to come through and hopefully make its way to the Senate. And we will see if the governor will listen to the legislature, listen to you and the people, and sign these bills, giving us this huge tax credit. So we will pay attention to that. All right. Brian Allman was over in the Senate. He's going to make his way to a spot. We'll get in with him in just a moment here. So give us a few moments. But one thing that was very, very fascinating this morning was the presentation of a House Joint Memorial 4. Now, House Joint Resolution. Is it a memorial? What is it? It's a HJR. Yeah, it's a resolution. This would put onto the ballot another constitutional amendment for us to consider as Idahoans on whether it should be up to the legislature to regulate the legality of psychotic drugs like marijuana and all sorts of drugs, marijuana included, right? I want to show you a graphic. This was posted this morning. I saw this from Representative Heather Scott. She shared this graphic this morning. Look at this. This is a map of the United States where marijuana is either fully legal or somewhat legal, or maybe just THC is legal if you go to a shop and just buy THC for medicinal purposes or whatever. So all of the shades of green is where marijuana is legal in some format. The dark green is where it's completely legal. Just full on, you can grow it, you can sell it, you can smoke it, you can walk around the streets, depending on the city ordinances, but for most intents and purposes, for all intents and purposes, it's legal in all the dark green spots. We are in red because as of right now, marijuana is still completely illegal in Idaho. And so we have a shade of red there. And as you can see, we're surrounded by states where it's completely legal. So Idaho is doubling down. Here is Representative Skog. Is it Skog who presented this morning? Surprise me here because my mind's all a jumble here. Somebody presented this bill this morning that would say we're gonna stay red. How about that? We're gonna keep Idaho red in terms of that map. Watch this.
Were you just talking about the efficiency of setting budgets in JFAC? Is that what you guys were trying to work out there?
Mr. Chairman, I was getting lobbied a little bit.
All right, go ahead, Representative Skog.
Committee, Mr. Chairman, Bruce Skog, District 10, Star, Middleton, Nampa areas. You've heard me talk about this a little bit already when we introduced this and on the previous HJR 3, and this is the replacement HJR 4. So I don't want to repeat myself too much, but there is good and evil in the world, and I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that it's part of our battle is to battle evil. One of the most evil things we deal with is the addiction, the sale, illegal sales and production of drugs, illegal drugs, the psychoactives, all the things you can think of, the heroin, the marijuana, all of that. It damages lives for generations. And we fight that as an Idaho state legislature and have a long history of doing that. And I'm proud to be part of that legacy. And that legacy is going to continue with this joint resolution as we amend our Constitution, if the voters so choose. The question we want to put before the Idaho voters is, shall Section 26, Article 3 of the Constitution of the State of Idaho be amended to provide that only the Idaho legislature shall have power and authority to legalize the growing, producing, manufacturing, transporting, selling, delivering, dispensing, administering, prescribing, distributing, possessing, or using of marijuana, narcotics, or other psychoactive substances.
Okay, so there's the language.
Relative
If you
to-
guys caught that, what this bill will do was will put it will put all of the power in the legislature to make decisions in the future on whether or not it's legal or in some form or fashion, right? So this isn't necessarily saying this will never be legal here in Idaho or anything like that. It's just saying we are not going to allow municipalities, we're not going to allow, referendums and all sorts of things to sort of mess with this thing. It's going to be left into the power of the legislature. Brian Allman is with us, and Brian, good to see you, my friend. We'll get to the tax debate that happened in the Senate that you were watching, but real quickly, when it comes to marijuana in Idaho, what do you think of this resolution?
I think it's just another way to protect our state. This isn't the early 2000s when the debate on legalizing drugs was mostly academic. It was, the potential of getting rid of restrictions on what you put in your own body. We've actually seen what it looks like now. My former home state of Washington was one of the first to legalize marijuana, and then Colorado did it, and now a bunch of states are doing it. And the results have not been some libertarian paradise. It's been poverty and mental illness and, problems with families. There's also issues with marijuana nowadays being laced with a bunch of stuff that we don't even know. So this is not something we want to see in Idaho. I think most Idahoans probably agree with that. And this seems like an interesting way to protect it.
Yeah, and also it allows the legislature to be the ones that can form task forces and do studies and have special committee hearings, because there is folks, even if you're out there and you're just staunchly against marijuana altogether from top to bottom, there is proven medicinal benefits for folks that are dealing with certain painful illnesses and so forth, that THC and certain applications of marijuana greatly enhance the people's lives, and improve their quality of life. And so right now, even medicinal marijuana is not legal. But at the same time, going to, like you said, Brian, going down the road of those states that we're neighboring, it's just, the balance there. We need to figure out what the balance is. And I think putting all of that into the hands of the legislature is probably a wise thing.
Yeah, if they do consider some sort of medicinal carve out, then it would have to be very carefully tailored, because in most other states, that medicinal level is just the camel's nose in the tent to go to full legalization.
Absolutely. I mean, every state started out with medicinal, and then the next thing you know, everybody's in the pool, and it's a raging pool party. We did have a clip from some pushback here on this from Representative I think Green. Let's watch that clip.
Thank you, Chairman and Representative Skog. So I'm reading through this, and I kind of got hung up on narcotics. Doing just a quick Google search, narcotics include codeine, morphine, medicine that is already used in our communities. I guess I'm trying to understand, if this passes, are we going to have hearings on medicines, and are we going to have to approve those every single time a new one makes an appearance? Furthermore, I'm looking into this. Controlled substances, narcotics, and opioids vary from Schedule 1 to 5. So in my 7 years I've been here, I haven't sat through a hearing specific to a medicine that is being used in our community. Is that what we can anticipate if this passes? We're going to be having hearings about new medicines coming before us.
Representative Skog.
Chairman Crane? Representative Green? No.
Further questions for Representative Skog? Representative Skog, if you want to go ahead and wrap up then.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, Committee, science and medicine affirm that these current illegal drugs should remain illegal. And so the social experiment in the other states affirm that we should not go that route. And I was kind of curt with you, Representative Green, I apologize. But we will not be running into that. It's the current illegal drugs that we would have to make legal. So that's the only time we would have to be involved in that. It's not going to be a running list of every
Yeah.
week we have
Okay.
to
Very
go
good. We're not going backwards here. We're not going to go relitigate all the different medicines and all the psychotics that are out there. Although, some could make the argument that some of the things that are prescribed out there should actually be treated even more harshly than marijuana. Wouldn't you say, Brian?
Oh yeah, sure. There's a lot of stuff out there that's legal that shouldn't be and illegal that shouldn't be. Um, you know, legalizing more, I don't think is necessarily the answer. But there's a lot of problems with the current system.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's what happened in that committee this morning. So yeah, let me get your take on this, on how House Bill 40 passed the Senate. We saw 2 Republicans join Democrats, which were expected to vote against. They always vote against these big tax cuts. But to see Senator Guthrie and then apparently Senator Woodward as well. Did he explain his vote at all?
He did not. Senator Woodward he just voted no during the roll call. Senator Guthrie, though, he did explain. He debated against the bill. Said that he told a story about calving and cattle, but then he switched to a metaphor about how this bill is like a train that the skids have been greased. It's on its way. Everybody knows it's going to pass, but he's going to stand in front of the train just on the off chance that he might stop it. And he suggested amending it to make it only a 0.2% drop instead of 0.4%. But basically, he was coming from the same perspective as the Democrats, that it's irresponsible to give this money back to taxpayers when we don't know what's going to happen with the economy. And we have all these things that we should be paying for, or we need to pay for, that we want to pay for. From my perspective, it was taking the angle that this is government money and we need to debate how much we're going to give back to people. Whereas others, such as Senator Groh, Senator Lenny, and Senator Ricks, were taking the perspective that it's already the people's money. We've taken too much. We have these surpluses, and we should give some back. Allow people to keep more of their own money.
Yeah, that's it right there. That's the crux of it right there. If you ever go to any of these town halls with these folks, you need to ask them, do you work for the people or do you work for the government? Because you act like you work for the government, where you're like, we have all of this money, we need to spend it. We don't know if we're going to lose it in the future. We need to. No. It's the people's money. Give it back to them. You could always come back later on and say, we need to raise taxes, and no one's going to stop you, apparently, because that's happened over and over and over again. But for right now, give the money back. Give the money back if you're running surpluses. It's a no-brainer. And for 2 Republicans to stand alone, to be accused of being Democrats, right? They especially Jim Woodward, accused of being Democrat, and he lost his incumbent race 2 years ago to Senator Scott Herndon, and then he was fully backed by Democrats up north during the 24 election. And then, of course, he stands alone with Guthrie and the Democrats on voting against a bill that would give you more of your tax money back. I mean, hello, McFly,
I do want to call out 3 things that I thought were good points on this. Senator Groh, in his debate, said that if we do have a recession, we can always come back and cut government spending instead of raising taxes. Senator Josh Cole said that this is the people's money. It's not ours to give away. And then Senator Camille Blaylock, during her 60 seconds to explain her vote, she simply said that she trusts the people to spend the money better than the government. So if there is a recession, then why not let people have the money and people spend the money, people keep the economy going instead of trying to do it from the top down.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel so ashamed that I said you can go back and raise taxes. I feel so ashamed that even came out of my mouth, but that's because I was living in a world and in a narrative that Jim Guthrie owned for that moment. So I apologize. That's exactly what you do. If we can't afford stuff, you go back in a special session and you cut spending. That's exactly what we want to see. We want to see it happen, folks. We want to see it happen. And it's in that vein that this morning we saw Representative Jaron Crane propose a bill that would establish a task force for the Department of Government Efficiency here in Idaho. I don't know if you caught this. Did you catch this, Brian? We have the tape. Roll it.
It is not lost on me that we would be introducing this RS on Idaho Day. What this is establishing the Department of Government Efficiency, legislative task force. This task force is going to have 3 members of the House of Representatives that'll be appointed by the Speaker. It's going to have 3 members of the Senate that'll be appointed by the Pro Tem. Then it'll have 3 members of the Joint Finance Appropriation Committee that will have 1 member from the House, 1 member from the Senate, and then an additional member from the House or the Senate. This task force is going to go ahead and look at regulatory accountability, budget accountability, and government operations and oversight. The terms will be for 1 year, and this does have a sunset date of 4 years. So they'll get to work pretty quickly and make recommendations to the legislature on what we need to improve as a government to make it more efficient.
Thank you, Representative Crane. Are there questions for Representative Crane? Representative Green.
Thank you, Chairman and Representative Crane. Looking through this really quick, and because I just want to ensure that we have representation from everyone, nowhere in here does it mention a Democrat needs to be on the legislative task force.
Representative Crane, 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Green. No, it does not specify any party affiliation. That is true.
Follow-up,
just a comment. When we haven't done that in the past, there's been task force where we haven't had representation. So it'd be nice to see that amended.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, when there's only 15 Democrats in the entire legislature out of 105 lawmakers, I mean, if we go down to California, which is a one-party state the other way with Democrats in charge, are Republicans going to be given representation on their task forces to figure out what nonsense they want to do?
Yeah.
But when it comes to cutting government, it's probably best not to have Democrats on there.
I mean, maybe one, maybe Gannon. I'd put Gannon on there.
He's a reasonable guy.
Hey, here's the thing though, Brian. One thing that I also would like to see is I'd like to see some citizen involvement in this as well. I mean, I think you or I could sit on that committee, and I mean, I may not contribute as much, but I certainly will. I certainly will offer up support or high fives or what are you? Or I could fulfill the role of a foil and say you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea. I like the idea. I don't know if this is going to go through or not, but interesting comments there from Green. Achilles, Representative Achilles also had a quick quip on this.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment on the motion here. I just spent 30 minutes talking to a 14-year manager at the VA, an Army vet, who was fired because he took a promotion a year ago. He was 12 days from ending his probationary status. So if we take on a DOJ task force in the state, let's do it a little more thoughtfully than what's happening at the federal level.
Thank you, Representative Achilles.
Ouch. Ouch. Democrats hate the DOJ.
Yeah, the Democrats do have all sorts of stories of federal workers who, this one shouldn't have been fired or this one shouldn't have been fired. And they're always going to find that. And that's the same thing with employees or with budgets or when we're dealing with state agencies. Every time we say, well, let's cut this one or let's cut that one or let's cut this line item, somebody's going to get up and say, actually, this is so important. This is the most important thing. You better not cut this. But it has to be done. Government's grown way too large and we need to cut it down to size.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Alman. Well, good day today. A lot of good movement on some bills that we'd like to see. What are you working on? What can we follow and where can we follow you?
Oh, goodness. GemStateChronicle.com. I didn't even get an article out yesterday. I was just too busy here, but I'll still keep up on whatever's going on in the legislature. We've got tax cuts moving through the system. We've got the new, we didn't even mention this morning's hearing on the Medicaid, or you might have before I got here, about the Medicaid sideboards. It's the third version of that bill, and it passed committee. There's a lot to unpack there. But yeah, at Gemstate Brian on Twitter.
Well, real quickly, Brian, let's play that clip. So so just to keep people up to speed, House Bill 138 passed the House. This would have had the guardrails. It would have pulled back. It would have added some more restrictions, get some waivers from the federal government so that we wouldn't have to keep overspending on Medicaid expansion. That passed the House. It's been sitting in the Senate. While it's been sitting there, there's been a lot of pushback behind the scenes, and they came up with House Bill 345, which is a bit more of a compromise on some of the concerns that people had. Well, Representative Lucas Kaler out of District 11 made a motion this morning. This was a long hearing. Made a motion this morning with regards to H 138. Let's listen to that.
I move that we hold this bill for time certain until a week from now on March 11th.
Okay.
And do you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So currently we have House Bill 138 that is sitting over on the Senate side. And while I believe that House Bill 345 is a good step in the right direction, I personally would like to see House Bill 138 be given a hearing over on the Senate side. And hopefully we can get that bill moved through the Senate and moved into law. I think that the side guards that are currently sitting on that particular bill put a lot better accountability into the expansion program, plus the waiver requirements. If we can get those met by the federal government, I think that would be a net positive for the state of Idaho. So I would ask the good members of this body to move to hold 4 times certain House Bill 345 for 1 week. And thank you.
Well, you're muted there, Matt. But
well,
yeah,
go ahead and tell everybody what happened.
Yeah, so this bill is a much more complicated bill than 138. 138 was put certain sideboards on Medicaid, including work requirements and caps, but it has a trigger that if they don't get those waivers from the federal government, its Medicaid expansion is gone. That really worried a lot of people, worried about maybe getting it through the Senate. So this is another version that has that, but without the trigger. But it also has some cost containment measures. It also has managed care, which is an entire, you could do an entire show on the ins and outs of that. So it's a very complex bill. The one to hold it failed 7-8, so it was very close. But the one to pass it passed on party lines, so it will hit the House floor.
Yeah, it will hit. It will. Yeah. So 345 moves forward. We'll see what happens with 138, regardless. All right, Alman, Gem State, Brian on Twitter, on X. We'll see you next time, buddy.
Yep. Thanks, Matt.
All right. All right, everybody. That does it for us. Thank you so much for watching. Here's some photos this morning of Senator Ben Taves delivering the prayer on Idaho Day. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Take care.
I think it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.